Ja, prima, danke, dass Sie sich so toll engagieren. Das ist super. Schöne Ostern auch an. Das ist Ihr Vater. Genau. Super, großartig. Danke. Alles klar, grüß dich. Ja,
No, no.
I can try.
Anja? Anja?
Unsere Jury, der Jury.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, on behalf of the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma, the Documentation and Cultural Center of German Sinti and Roma, and the Manfred Lautenschläger Foundation, I have the honor to welcome you to the award ceremony of the European Civil Rights Prize of Sinti and Roma. Before we start, I have the pleasure to invite our musicians to give a beautiful atmosphere to this ceremony, and I present you to Barbara Botešová from Slovakia with her colleagues Rigo Jan and Marek Milko. Welcome. have now the honor to ask Vice President of the European Parliament, Mr. Wieland, to welcome us here in the House of European History. On behalf.
Dear President of the Slovak Republic, Andrej Kiška, and honored laureate, dear Commissioner Vera Jourova, dear Minister of State Michael Roth, dear Chair of the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma, Mr. Romani Roos, dear colleague Soraya Post, dear Catherine Segelken, representing her father, Dr. Manfred Lautenschläger, dear Director of the House of European History, Dr. Constanze Itzel, dear jury committee, dear distinguished guests of various range and honor. It is with great pleasure and honor to welcome you today on behalf of the European Parliament, representing its President Antonio Tajani, as one of the Vice Presidents, and to open the 2019 awarding ceremony of the European Civil Rights Prize of the Sinti and Roma. I would like to start by thanking you for coming to Brussels to award the European Civil Rights Prize here for the very first time, and at a very crucial time, only a few weeks before the European elections. Your award, the European Civil Rights Prize, is a strong signal against political division in Europe. It honors the courageous and persistent engagement of individuals like President Kiska, who, at a time where Sinti and Roma are threatened by extremist forces in Slovakia and throughout Europe, but especially in Eastern Europe, has used his political power to speak out for their equal rights. Minorities are always the first to experience social tensions and populistic tendencies in a society. Therefore, the European Parliament has been at the forefront in the protection of the rights of minorities. In fact, it is one of the EU's founding principles. In order to promote the full equality of minorities in all areas of the political, economic, social and cultural life in Europe, the Parliament has passed a resolution in November last year in which MEPs asked Member States to stand stronger against discriminatory practices against minorities. In its resolution, the Parliament also calls on Member States to abolish the statelessness of a high number of Roma people in Europe, who are in a situation which leads to the total denial of their access to social, educational and healthcare services and pushes them to the margins of society. One of the most important aims of this resolution was to reduce hate speech, which affects and targets minorities and which we see as a catalyst of division and even hate crime. Member States of the European Union have the task and the obligation to protect the human rights of their minorities. We as a European Parliament will keep calling on Member States to step up the fight against discriminatory attitudes and behavior. We are standing today in the newly built House of European History. This is a place of memory of Europe's conflicted past and at the same time a place to shape our common identity as Europeans, which is now a few weeks before the European elections of highest importance. Political demagogues are trying to fake history, to divide us as Europeans amongst national and cultural lines, to marginalize people, to present scapegoats and to promise easy solutions for complex problems. But the EU is a unique mosaic of cultures, languages, religions, traditions, and a common history. Our strength as Europeans is precisely our diversity. No nation, no ethnic group is something better, but all of them are something special. The only credible way to claim its own speciality is to acknowledge the speciality of others. We have to do everything to protect and promote the freedom of this diversity, since it is essential for peace, security, and stability for all of us on our continent. I want to end by quoting President Kiska. He has said that if the Romani people are not prospering, Slovakia will not prosper for long either. The same is true for Europe. If our minorities are not prospering, there will be no sustainable prosperity either. Our common future in a free and solidly united Europe depends on the protection of the rights of all minorities and the promotion of tolerance, mutual respect, understanding and cooperation. Dear laureate, distinguished guests and speakers, welcome again to the House of European History, and I wish you a delightful awarding ceremony.
I would like to ask the director of the House of European History, our host, to say her welcome words. Dr. Constanze Itzel, thank you.
Dear President Kiska, dear Minister Roth, dear Commissioner Jourova, dear Vice President Wieland, dear Mr. Rose, dear Mrs. Post, dear representatives of the Lautenschläger Foundation, and dear guests. On behalf of the House of European History team, I wish you a warm welcome in our house, and it is a great honor that you hold this ceremony here today. The first time that you hold it in Brussels, you come to our House of European History. This is really a big, big honor for our whole team. The fact that you have chosen this prize, to hand this prize out here, is for me the symbolic expression of a hope. The hope that perhaps mankind can learn from its past mistakes. Unfortunately, our permanent exhibition bears witness to the fact that racism is deeply rooted in European history. Racial theories from the 19th century were adopted by the National Socialists. They viewed interracial mixing as degenerative for humanity. Based on racial ideology, they organized a systematic and industrialized annihilation of groups of particular ethnic origin, among them the Roma people. But not only are genocides part of European history, also drawing lessons from them is. Our exhibition, as you can see when you visit, also looks at the ways this unique crime against humanity has been dealt with in its aftermath. Amidst all legal efforts to address the crimes of German leaders, the legacy of the atrocities committed led to the development of legal protection of inviolable human rights within international law, the setting up of a European Convention on Human Rights, and later the formulation of a Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. At times when history and memory are being distorted to serve nationalistic and populist political goals, when they are being used to divide rather than to unite, we need to continue fighting for the furthering of these human rights, and we need to make sure that the violation of human rights becomes a thing of the past that will only be visible in museums. But the present-day situation of Roma in Europe is not encouraging. After all the horrors, after all education about the genocides of the 20th century, I am asking myself, how is it possible that racism, that discrimination between Sinti and Roma, against Sinti and Roma still exists? That the biggest minority in Europe still does not benefit from equal opportunities? How is it possible that still today the Roma Holocaust is questioned or even denied? Are we humans condemned to forget and repeat? If we believed this was the case, we could close our museum, stop teaching, abandon political battles, and give up on all the human rights. We may not do this, and we must not do this. More research is needed and should be encouraged about the history of the genocides and discrimination of the Roma minority. More educational efforts are needed in schools, and more anti-discrimination programs in the local communities. As those who know about the horrors of the past, we must continue to warn. As a history museum, this is our commitment: to remind, to remember, to inform, to show evidence, to teach, to stir debate. From our perspective as historians describing the past, we can only hope for more courageous leaders, as you are, or personalities to build the future of Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
I have now the pleasure and the honor to welcome Mrs. Jourova, Commissioner for Justice, Consumers and Gender Equality.
Mr. President of the Slovak Republic, drahý pane prezidente Kisko, Mr. President, or Mr. Vice President of the European Parliament, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Soraya Post, distinguished guests, Excellencies. It is an honor for me to be here today. Today we are here to acknowledge and applaud the commitment of the President of the Slovak Republic, His Excellency Mr. Andrej Kiska, for promoting the participation of the Roma minority as equal citizens of their home country, and therefore for this support for democratic progress in Slovakia and in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a pleasure to meet President Kiska only 2 weeks ago in the region of eastern Slovakia, where we had very good exchange on the situation of Roma in Slovakia. When in Slovakia, I also went to several segregated schools and Roma settlements. It was very touching. I have to be a little bit personal now because I saw a lot of despair and poverty, but also many promising projects. And I met enthusiastic teachers and committed professionals, mayors and also politicians who work hard to achieve change. And President Kiska was a great inspiration for all of them. Today, more than ever, we need political figures who are good role models and who set good examples for the societies they live in, as President Kiska. Roma inclusion was never about promoting special rights, but about aspiring for equality and dignity of the Roma community in the EU. And I do agree with President Kiska that to achieve the level of equality between Roma and non-Roma that we have wanted for so long, we must stop referring to Roma as a Roma problem. Instead, we should discuss the Roma potential. We must continue to seriously encourage society to empower Roma and promote ways for Roma to participate at all levels of society. In fact, our evolution of the European Union's framework for national Roma integration strategies up to 2020 shows that empowerment and capacity building of Roma and pro-Roma civil society is absolutely crucial for providing social services to Roma, for developing policy, and for acting as an independent watchdog. We need to apply specific measures to empower Roma and allow them to fully participate in society. And we have to strengthen the Roma voice in the policy process. We can do this, for example, through community actions that support Roma taking part in politics, or by encouraging Roma to take up professions in which they are underrepresented. When I say we, I mean all of us, member states, European institutions, civil society, and most importantly, Roma themselves. The EU framework clearly underlined that the integration of Roma is a two-way process that requires a change in mindset of the majority of people and also of members of the Roma communities. Roma inclusion is a long-term process that requires a great amount of political support from the top. It is essential in these times, especially when rising racism, xenophobia, and intolerance in general has gripped our societies, that the heads of states lead by example. Your Excellency, Mr. President Kiska, allow me, as Commissioner for Justice, Consumers and Gender Equality, to congratulate you for your commitment and dedication for Roma integration and Roma inclusion. Your work and open support over the years has been instrumental for improving the situation of the Roma community in Slovakia. I wish also to extend my appreciation to the organizers of this initiative. I want to come back in one sentence back to Mr. President Kiska. In recent years, I had the privilege and honor to meet many presidents. There are not many presidents who I can imagine that they sit with Roma family or with poor people, with the people in their very modest house, having honest debate, not being bigger than themselves, being authentic, and being the one who comes to listen to their needs, troubles, and to come back to his office and to do something for them. Thank you for this.
Before announcing the next speech, I would like to draw your attention to our interpretations. Number 1, English, number 2, German, number 19, Slovak. The next speech will be delivered in German. I now welcome Mr. Romani Rose, the chair of the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident Kiska, sehr geehrter Herr Vizepräsident Wieland, sehr geehrte Frau Jourová, und ich möchte an dieser Stelle, Frau Kommissarin, Ihnen für Ihre wegweisenden Worte meinen Dank und meinen Respekt ausdrücken. Mit Ihren Worten haben Sie der Sache gedient und auf die Punkte hingewiesen, die meistens in der Politik übersehen werden. Haben Sie dafür vielen Dank. Sehr geehrter Herr Staatsminister Roth, sehr geehrte Frau Post, sehr geehrte Frau Dr. Itzel, sehr geehrte Frau Segelkern, sehr geehrter Herr Lautenschläger, sehr geehrte Exzellenzen, ich möchte auch meine Stellvertreter begrüßen, Herrn Marschall, Herrn Schneeberger und Herrn Weiß, liebe Vorstände des Zentralrats, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, Exzellenzen, liebe Gäste. Es ist mir eine Ehre, Sie zur Verleihung des Europäischen Bürgerrechtepreises der Sinti und Roma 2019 in Brüssel an Herrn Staatspräsidenten Kiska begrüßen zu dürfen. Ich bedauere es sehr, dass der Stifter des Preises, Dr. Manfred Lautenschläger, heute krankheitsbedingt nicht bei uns sein kann. Ich wünsche ihm auf diesem Weg eine rasche Genesung. Das Haus der europäischen Geschichte, in dem wir uns heute hier befinden, scheint mir für diesen Anlass genau der richtige Ort zu sein, denn er unterstreicht die europäische Dimension des Preises, der zur Durchsetzung der Menschenrechte und Chancengleichheit für unsere Minderheit in ihren Heimatländern beitragen soll. Ich danke der Frau Itzel als Hausherrin, dass wir hier ihre großzügige Gastfreundschaft genießen können. Die gleichberechtigte Teilhabe der mit 10 bis 12 Millionen Angehörigen größten Minderheit Europas ist ein gemeinsames Ziel, dem die Institutionen der Europäischen Union genauso wie die einzelnen Nationalstaaten verpflichtet sind. Durch die diesjährige Vergabe des Preises, wenige Wochen vor der Wahl des Europäischen Parlaments, erhält der Preis daher eine besondere Signalwirkung. Das Haus der europäischen Geschichte erinnert außerdem daran, dass wir in Europa nach den Erfahrungen zweier Weltkriege und des Holocaust an 500.000 ermordeter Sinti und Roma und 6 Millionen ermordeter Juden jetzt eine über 70-jährige Phase des inneren und des äußeren Friedens erleben dürfen. Dieser Frieden fußt auf gemeinsame demokratischen Werten und darf niemals als selbstverständlich angesehen werden. Wir alle sind dazu aufgerufen, diesen Frieden immer wieder aufs Neue zu sichern. Sinti und Roma sind in Europa aber immer wieder Diskriminierung, gesellschaftlicher Ausgrenzung und rassistischer Gewalt ausgesetzt. Hassverbrechen gegen Sinti und Roma bis zu pogromartigen Ausschreitungen, wie wir sie im vergangenen Jahr in der Ukraine erleben mussten, gehören in vielen Staaten zum Alltag. Große Besorgnis empfinden wir vor allem mit Blick auf die Staaten in Europa, wo gesellschaftlicher Antiziganismus immer wieder zu Gewalt gegen unsere Minderheit motiviert. Dieser Antiziganismus und diese Gewalt resultieren eindeutig auch aus der Hetze politischer Parteien. Fallstudien in verschiedenen Staaten zeigen, dass rechte und rechtsradikale politische Parteien wie Jobbik in Ungarn oder die slowakische Nationalpartei im Wahlkampf Roma als Problem der öffentlichen Sicherheit darstellen und so das gesellschaftliche Klima vergiften. Erschreckend ist, dass auch rechtsstaatlich-demokratische Parteien mit ihrer Rhetorik die in den Köpfen der Menschen vorhandenen antiziganistischen Vorurteile gezielt ansprechen, um Wähler in populistischer Weise zu mobilisieren. Auch sie diffamieren Roma durch ihre Abstammung pauschal als Armuts- und Kriminalitätsproblem, was dazu führt, dass die so stigmatisierten Menschen Ausgrenzung und Rassismus erfahren. Doch auch in West- und Mitteleuropa sind eine Ächtung des Antiziganismus und eine reflektierte Position zur Geschichte und zur Minderheitenrechten bei führenden Politikern keineswegs selbstverständlich. Im Juli letzten Jahres forderte der italienische Innenminister Salvini, dass Sinti und Roma in Italien einem sogenannten Personenregister gesondert zu zählen und zu erfassen seien. Eine solche Erfassung war eine Praxis des Faschismus und lieferte die Grundlage für den bürokratisch organisierten Holocaust an Sinti und Roma wie an Juden im Nationalsozialismus. Dass antiziganistische Stereotypen in allen gesellschaftlichen Schichten und quer durch alle politischen Parteien noch tief im Denken und Handeln der Menschen in Europa verankert sind, zeigen auch Äußerungen von hochrangigen Mitgliedern des Europäischen Parlaments. Dem strukturellen Rassismus, den es in vielen Institutionen, auch der Europäischen Union gibt, gilt es geschlossen und entschieden entgegenzutreten. Ich appelliere daher an die Mitglieder des Europäischen Parlaments, jede Form von Antiziganismus zu ächten und rassistische Hetze nicht unwidersprochen zu lassen. Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident Kiska, vor diesem Hintergrund zeigen Sie mit Ihrem dem Rechtsstaat verpflichtenden und solidarischen Position zu unserer Minderheit, dass man als Politiker den Respekt der Wähler erlangen kann, ohne sich auf den Rücken von Minderheiten zu profilieren. Gegenüber dem slowakischen Parlament und den Medien machen Sie immer wieder deutlich, dass die Roma für Sie mit ihrer jahrhundertealten Geschichte und ihren kulturellen Leistungen ein selbstverständlicher Teil der slowakischen Gesellschaft bilden und dass sie sich genauso patriotisch zu ihrem Heimatland bekennen wie die slowakische Mehrheitsgesellschaft. Zugleich verschließen Sie nicht die Augen vor der gesellschaftlichen Realität der Slowakei, in der viele Roma in Armut aufgrund rassistischer Ausgrenzung und ohne Zukunftsperspektive leben müssen. In den letzten Jahren haben Sie immer wieder die Bildungssituation von Roma in der Slowakei problematisiert, die von tiefer struktureller Segregation gezeichnet ist und Sie haben zu einer gemeinsamen gesellschaftlichen und politischen Anstrengung aufgerufen. Aus diesem Grund danke ich Ihnen im Namen der Sinti und Roma Europas, dass Sie Ihre Stimme für die Rechte unserer Minderheit erheben und kann Sie nur von Herzen darum bestärken, Ihre Forderung auch weiterhin so engagiert und weiterhin so zu vertreten und in die Tat umzusetzen. Abschließend geht mein herzlichster Dank an den Stifter des Preises, Dr. Manfred Lautenschläger. Seine Tochter, Frau Katharina Segelken, wird sich daher später noch etwas zu diesen persönlichen Motiven sagen. Doch jetzt bitte ich Frau Soraya Post, Co-Präsidentin der Arbeitsgruppe Antirassismus und Diversity des Europäischen Parlaments, um ihr Wort. Haben Sie vielen Dank.
Tembachtale Salrom, Sinturi, Bilgare. Good evening, dear ladies, gentlemen, friends, President Kiska, Minister Roth, Commissioner Jourova, Vice President Wieland. It is a huge moment for us who has a Roma background. We have seen a development in the European Parliament in cooperation with the European Commission, which are very positive, but we can also see negative attitudes growing around us. I feel very honored and happy to be here this evening with all of you at the European Civil Rights Prize of Sinti and Roma during this year's Roma Week. I am honored, Mr. Rose, for your work And I have feel great gratitude to your work during so many years, and you're still here doing the same work with the same spirit. So thank you very much for that. And I would also like to congratulate and say thank you to this year's laureate, the President of the Slovak Republic, Andrej Kiska. Thank you, Mr. Kiska, for recognizing and defending the rights of Roma in your home country, Slovakia. Your actions and words are so crucial, especially during these times when right-wing extremism, populism, and nationalism are growing in Europe. These dark forces use our democratic tools to destroy our democracy, but we will not let them. Together we are stronger. The European Union is founded on the values of respect for human dignity, equality, and respect for human rights. However, millions of Roma are still denied their basic human rights and face massive discrimination throughout their lives, from education to employment and access to justice. This stems, as you all know, from a deep-rooted anti-Gypsies, deriving from centuries-long dehumanization of Roma. The depth of this specific kind of racism can also be detected in the public discourse of European politicians. Just to mention some recent examples: Matteo Salvini in Italy, and also the Czech President Miloš Zeman. Their actions and statements are reminders of the darkest days of European history. Nobody should express him or herself like this, especially not a politician in an EU member state. This is hate speech and racism, and that is against European law. The European Council Framework Decision on Racism and Xenophobia clearly states that hate speech is a crime and it is punishable by criminal penalties. This is where we all have to be strong and clear and say that we do not accept this hate and exclusion. We have to stop the normalization of hate and racism before it destroys our societies. We who believe in democracy and in human rights have to stand up together and protect the rights of everyone. We need to remain true to our democratic values: respect for human rights, non-discrimination, and the rule of law. So once again, President Kiska, I would like to thank you for being true to our values and helping us in our fight. It's a common fight. It's not a Roma fight. It's a common fight. Thank you.
Before we come to the laudatory part of the ceremony, I have the pleasure to welcome and here once again our group, the Barbara Botoshova Trio. Barbara Botoshova, Jan Rego, and Marek Milko. Thank you. I have now the honor to announce the Minister of State of Germany, Mr. Michael Roth, to give the laudatory speech.
Good evening to everybody, Mr. President, Commissioner, Vice President, lieber Romani Rose, distinguished guests from all over Europe. We don't want Roma as our neighbors. These words are not taken from a history book describing the mindset of the 1930s that led to the systematic deprivation, persecution and extermination of Sinti and Roma under Nazi Germany. The sad truth is, this is what 4 out of 10 Germans think, according to a study from the year 2012. Italian Roma, unfortunately, we have to keep them. This is the Italian Minister of Interior speaking in June 2018. Some say that one can measure a society's respect for human rights and democracy in how minorities are treated. When I think about these quotes and the situation of many Sinti and Roma in Europe, I'm deeply worried about Europe, about our society. But there are signs of hope. One of them is the prize I have the honor to award today, the European Civil Rights Prize of the Sinti and Roma. This prize sends a message of solidarity and humanity to the marginalized group of the Roma in Europe. And it reminds ourselves what it takes to call the European Union a community of values. The Central Council of German, Sinti and Roma has become an indispensable partner in this regard. For decades, it has been raising awareness for the so-called forgotten Holocaust, the genocide of the Sinti and Roma. It has been drawing attention to the dramatic human and civil rights situation of the largest minority in Europe. Likewise, it's a vivid actor in creating empowerment measures and partnering with Roma communities throughout Europe. Lieber Romani Rose, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for your and the Central Council's dedicated work. Thank you so much. Distinguished guests, in times when populist and nationalist voices become louder, when anti-Semitism, anti-Ziganism, racism, and homophobia are on the rise, it takes courageous men and women to stand up and raise their voices. Today we want to honor one man who has stood up for the rights of Roma in his country, even if it meant to take quite some heat for it. Dear President Kiska, awarding you with the European Civil Rights Prize of the Sinti and Roma expresses the appreciation for your long and outstanding commitment in fighting anti-Ziganism. For you, dignity starts with a name. So you vehemently oppose the description of Roma as gypsies, which many Roma see as defamatory and discriminatory. Throughout your term of office, you have repeatedly called attention to Roma issues, whether by engaging with members of the community or by addressing shortcomings in your own country. You have sought first-hand information, for instance, by visiting Roma settlements and discussing with NGOs and individuals. You have taken the time to listen to people and their concerns, like to 11-year-old Roma Anna Maria Horvatova, who became a role model for children from disadvantaged families. What I particularly admire is that you are a man of clear words. Let me recall your State of the Union address in 2017. One of the chapters of shame in the story of Slovak Republic is the fate of our excluded Romani communities. Romani are not a part of our country's success. But if the Romani people are not prospering, Slovakia will not prosper for long either. Your way forward is to recognize the potential of Roma and to work on concrete proposals to fully tap it. You keep stressing the fundamental importance of education as key to the integration of the Roma. Therefore, you proposed to introduce compulsory preschool education which can promote language acquisition and counteract the segregation of Roma children in schools. Even though Slovakia has received vast EU funds for the integration of the Roma, you feel that concrete targets and the political will for change are very often missing. Therefore, you advocated reflecting this in the government by creating the office of a minister or deputy prime minister for Roma issues. Dear President Kiska, Europe needs more brave leaders like you. Leaders who embody the European idea by promoting democratic values, fundamental freedoms, respect, tolerance, and minority rights. In the past few years, you kept underlining the legitimate need for the protection of refugees. You spoke out against the Slovak government's rejection of refugees and called for more solidarity within Europe. You did not shy away from confronting the government when you felt that principles like the rule of law and democratic values were in danger. A strong advocate for the freedom of the press, you have come out strongly against restrictions a new media law could introduce. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the European Civil Rights Prize of the Sinti and Roma reminds us that we still have a long way to go. Even with strategies for Roma inclusion in place for almost a decade, we still see little improvement in the actual living conditions of the Roma in too many European countries. The opportunities regarding education, work, and social inclusion. In some cases, the situation has even worsened. When we discuss the next European framework for Roma integration, we can't continue with business as usual. Governments should not only pledge unconditional support for the Roma people on the International Romani Day on the 8th of April, but have actions follow words every day. Every state has to guarantee equal opportunities for participation in housing, in achieving a degree, in finding one's way to formation or university. Roma children must not be sent to special schools in segregated areas. Roma must not live in wrecked homes without clean drinking water and electricity any longer. Healthcare and social assistance must be accessible to Roma. Roma must not longer be afraid of going to the authorities. And most importantly, violence against Roma must stop. We have to make sure that Europe's largest ethnic minority is adequately represented in parliaments and governments on different levels. The voice of the Roma doesn't belong to the margins of society. However, it's not only up to the governments to change the situation, but to every single member of our societies. As you have said, President Kiska, there are two ways the problems must be addressed: through more effective governmental solutions and through changing the public perception and their negative emotions towards the Roma. I couldn't agree more, dear Mr. President. So when someone points a finger at the Roma, he points his finger to all of us. Only if we openly start questioning our stereotypes will we respect the right of our neighbors. Dear President Kiska, thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for your engagement. My congratulations on receiving the European Civil Rights Prize of the Sinti and Roma. Thank you so much.
The European Civil Rights Prize of Sinti and Roma has been made possible thanks to the great efforts and contribution of the Manfred Lautenschläger Foundation. I have now the pleasure to welcome, on behalf of the Manfred Lautenschläger Foundation, Katharina Segelgen.
I have to excuse myself. I will hold my speech in German, so if you need interpretation, please change. Exzellenzen, verehrter Präsident Kiska, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich habe heute die große Freude, den Europäischen Bürgerrechtspreis der Sinti und Roma an den slowakischen Staatspräsidenten Andrej Kiska zu überreichen. Die Jury hat entschieden, in diesem Jahr den Fokus der bedrohlichen Situation der Minderheiten in Osteuropa zu lenken, wo Antiziganismus, Rassismus und Ausgrenzung immer wieder zu Gewalt gegen die Roma führt. Für das vergiftete Klima, in dem solche Gewalttaten passieren, ist immer auch die Politik verantwortlich. Dabei ist es nicht nur die Politik der extremen Rechten, die mit Vorurteilen gegen die Minderheit Hass und Angst schüren, um die Stimmen ihrer Wähler zu bekommen. Es sind immer wieder auch liberale und demokratische Parteien, die das in ihren Wahlkampf mit einbauen. Unter den Politikern Osteuropas ist der diesjährige Preisträger eine absolute Ausnahme. Er möchte integrieren statt auszugrenzen und erhebt Einspruch gegen Diskriminierung und Antiziganismus. Für dieses vorbildliche Engagement möchten wir ihn gerne heute mit dem Europäischen Bürgerrechtspreis für Sinti und Roma auszeichnen. Vor der Übergabe des Preises möchte ich noch ein paar Worte zur Zielsetzung verlieren. Von Anfang an stand fest, dass vorrangig Personen und Institutionen aus der Mehrheitsbevölkerung ausgezeichnet werden sollen, die sich der Verantwortung der Geschichte stellen und sich in vorbildlicher Weise für eine Verbesserung der Situation der Sinti und Roma einsetzen. Darin waren sich mein Vater und Romani Rose sofort einig. Der Preis versteht sich als ein Signal an die Gesellschaft, an die Medien und auch an die Politik, das aufrütteln soll und zu zivilgesellschaftlichem Engagement anspornen. Es ist eine große Ungerechtigkeit, dass Sinti und Roma jahrzehntelang aus der historischen Erinnerung der Bundesrepublik, aber auch aus dem Gedächtnis der anderen europäischen Nationen ausgegrenzt wurden. Erst die Bürgerrechtsbewegung der Sinti und Roma führte nach jahrelangem Kampf zur Anerkennung des Holocaust an dieser Minderheit. Zwei Personen, ohne deren Wirken wir heute wahrscheinlich nicht hier in Brüssel, im Herzen von Europa wären, sind Vincent und Oskar Rose, der Vater und der Onkel von Romani Rose und Holocaust-Überlebende. Diese beiden Männer haben die Bürgerrechtsbewegung der Sinti und Roma in der noch jungen Bundesrepublik ins Leben gerufen und sie in den folgenden Jahrzehnten zu ihrem Erfolg geführt. Aus diesem Grund möchte ich heute an dieser Stelle verkünden, dass der Europäische Bürgerrechtspreis der Sinti und Roma in Zukunft in Erinnerung an diese beiden zentralen Persönlichkeiten der Bürgerrechtsbewegung nach Vinzenz und Oskar Rose benannt werden wird. Aber nun zurück zu Ihnen. Vielen lieben Dank, dass Sie sich täglich dieser Herausforderung stellen und nicht ruhig sind. Sehr geehrter Präsident Kiska, ich möchte Sie gerne und Herrn Romani Rose auf die Bühne bitten, um den Preis zu übergeben. Und Herrn Roth natürlich.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear friends, thank you, thank you, thank you. Dankeschön. Let me put my speech on the side for a while and tell you my personal experience. About 13 years ago, I visited Roma settlement in the east part of Slovakia, close to the town where I live. At that time, this 13 years ago, I did not even dream to be a politician. I just wanted to help. And in the settlement, there was a block of apartments. And outside the block of apartments, there was a number of shanties built around it. The shanties, they take the electricity from the block of apartments. You can imagine one block and let's say 200 shanties around. So the electricity was taken by the wires from the apartments there. And in shanties there were no water, no sanitation. And I visited this settlement many times. And when the first time I arrived, I was seated around the table. Only men were seated there, and women and children were seated sideways. They poured me a glass of vodka, offered Wiener Schnitzel and klobasa, sausage, and there were couple glasses of vodka which I had to drink to become a friend. And we started to talk about the things which were bothering them. And first what this 13 years ago, what I understood was that those people were absolutely honest. But their biggest problem, the biggest issue was that they couldn't find a job. They couldn't get a job, and very, very often they were rejected only because they were Romas. Second, they were really worried about that they could lose their homes, or the shanties were illegal. And a few years ago, a couple of populist politicians came with bulldozers, police dogs, and destroyed a few shanties there. And at the end of my first visit, they asked me to verify one thing. They invited one of there was a girl in the age of maybe 10 or 12, and they asked me, you know what? Our daughter learns English at school, and we don't speak any English. Could you please check whether she speaks correctly in English? And I said, of course, it would be my pleasure. So she started to speak with me in English, and those people understand that they believed even that if they want to change the lives of their children, their children needs to get education. And that without education, they cannot find a job. But if they have education, they could get a job despite the fact that she is Roma. Not all Roma families are like this family, but most of them live in the settlements, share the same fears and worries: housing, jobs, and education for their children. And you know what is important? They even don't want to get anything for free. Even they say that what they get for free they do not value. But the things they participate on creation, share, those things they respect and care for them. So now coming to my official part of the speech. It's a great honor and privilege to be here with you. Dear guests, people devoted to the cause of civil rights and equality. I stand here today with humility and thankful for the decision to award me. I stand here also with a great respect toward the importance and scope of challenges that we face. We can see Europe united, successful project of peace, social and economic development. And yet, despite the success of the countries, there are far too many people lagging behind. People that do not enjoy the same access to the opportunities available for most of us. Fighting poverty, inequality, discrimination, and even violence against the vulnerable communities should be our prior goal. And seeing certain groups struggling and being affected harder than others, we should not and cannot look the other way. Equality is the basic principle of each EU member state and of every democratic country. It stands upon our belief that equality of opportunities is making our societies more prosperous, safe and peaceful. It is based on persuasion that each individual has the right to get a chance to live a good life. That a place of birth, family or ethnicity must not define your destiny. It is our moral duty and it is our interest to protect and nurture equality. Because society that gives its members same opportunity to pursue their happiness also teaches them responsibility and raises more talent and resources for its own sake. Dear friends, as a president, I have seen poverty, segregation, and prejudice. But, as Madam Commissioner said, I also witnessed the most encouraging stories of transition. A whole village changed under the leadership of dedicated mayor. I watched the future of once doomed children to get brighter thanks to the attention of caring teachers. Success stories achieved by confident, patient, and responsible companies. In Slovakia, almost 20% of the Roma population is living in segregated communities. Half of them without the access to water supply. They have difficulties receiving the same level and quality of education. And those lacking skills, important to find stable and good jobs. They face discrimination in schools and in work. They are confronted with racism and have to fight prejudice all their life. One of my friend, she's a Roma, and she was born in one of the settlements. When she was young, the rats were eating her finger. Then, thanks to one of the teachers, she get out of the circle of poverty. She finished 2 universities, speaks 3 languages, adopted even Roma child from the orphanage. And you know what? When she comes into the shop just because of her color. The shop assistants are following her, whether she's not taking something to her pocket. That's discrimination. That's the life being Roma in our country. Good friends of me adopted from Holland, adopted from Netherlands, adopted two Roma's children. And they spent many weeks with my family. And I took these two small Roma boys in the age 2 and 4, and I was walking with them in our town. You cannot imagine how many people were looking at me. What is it? It's not correct. Oh my God, how many prejudices we have in our societies. How difficult it is to fight. I do understand that the situation of Roma minorities is complicated and difficult. That causes and consequences are often hard to distinguish one from another. But it is not fair. It is not fair when a future is taken from a child as a result of lacking preschool education. Every child must get a chance. It is unfair to expect that work standards and skills will somehow magically appear among the people living in shanty without running water or electricity. And I believe that a democratic society cannot ignore and accept inequality, discrimination, poverty, or segregation. However, fighting poverty and discrimination is not only about equality, fairness, and basic humanity. It is also social wise things to do. Roma minority makes almost 1/10 of Slovak population. There is 400,000 Romas people that also present great economical potential for talent, labor, and also for spending. As the President of Slovak Republic, I am proud that the social mobility in our country is, we can say, fine. In generally, it doesn't matter very much whether a child is born to rich or poor family. He or she has about the same chance to succeed in life. But there is one but. There is one group that is an exception. Children of long-term unemployed parents. Their chances to be unemployed and poor are about 4 times higher than the rest of the population. Considering the youth of the Roma demography, we can predict that without any change, the poverty in Slovakia will double in 2040. And poverty does not only mean higher expenses and loss of economic potential. Poverty creates also other problems such as criminality, health risk, or problems with neighbors. But most importantly, it creates frustration and distrust in society. For a long time, roots of problems were neglected and sometimes even ignored. Partial solutions led only to partial successes that has no persuaded general public. People lost their faith even in the very possibility to resolve the problem of Roma poverty. The result of the political indecision is widespread belief that nothing can be done. And this is not true. We should, and even we know exactly what should be done, what action to take. We have fantastic successful projects. amazing people who know what to do. Why does it not happen? For one simple reason. Fearing that anyone who will start talking about giving Roma a chance is to lose political points, political popularity. And, unfortunately, even in Slovakia, most politicians think of how to win next election and not in what kind of country our children would live. We know that we have to secure equal access and the same quality of the education of Roma children in order to cut off the circle of poverty. And I am glad to say that starting next year, every child in Slovakia should attend preschool education, leveling the abilities of kids from various socio-economic backgrounds. Apart from education, we have to focus on the living conditions and insist, but also enable unemployed to earn their living. We know that we have to settle the land under the illegal settlements. And we know that engaging people from the community in building their homes is working well. I visited one of the villages, and it was even cited in, I think, Washington papers. And the mayor of the village of, let's say, 3,000–4,000 people, there is about 20 or 30% of Romas living there. There is 0% unemployment. All Romas built their houses with support of the village. If you go there, you have a feeling it's like small miracle. And again, I was giving question to myself. Why? Why we cannot change it in all our settlements? We have to support such leaders. We have to promote role models. And we know that there is no first or second or third priority. It all has to be done together, as one without the other will not work properly. As the President of Slovak Republic, I frequently raise issues and challenges of marginalized Roma communities and their problems. Because people need to understand that we need more money, more resources, and more attention to solve these problems. Discussing the importance of intervention and promoting solutions may be demanding and exhausting. But silence only creates a space for something politically even more dangerous. Ignoring problems does not make them disappear. In order to guard trust in mainstream politics and in democracy, we cannot turn our back to difficult questions. What we have to do is exactly the opposite. It is a job of political leaders and politics to find solutions where individuals cannot help themselves. To answer tough questions and show the way to better future when no one can see it. Leaders' job is to lead. It is not to follow anger, frustration, or helplessness. It is our job to listen, of course. But then when we have to come back with solution, arguments, and patience. Otherwise, and it was mentioned in a speaker before me, people will look elsewhere to the extremists and populists who will gladly amplify their frustration and anger and turn them into disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, thank to everyone and each of you for doing his or her part in fighting inequality. In this place, I would like to especially thanks to all teachers, community, workers, employers, experts, policemen, everyone helping to cut off the circle of Roma poverty, not only in Slovakia, but also in all countries in the EU. I am hopeful that our collective effort will lead to a better society for everyone. Thank you very much.
Our award ceremony is coming to the end, but we have the pleasure to have the Barbara Botoshawa Trio once more.